The ocean has always held a place in the human imagination that balances somewhere between wonder and fear. For thousands of years, we have sailed upon its surfaces, watching the waves rise and fall, listening to the eternal rhythm of water against our fragile ships, and sensing the vast, unknowable mystery that lurks beneath. When writers, poets, and philosophers attempted to describe the sea, they often ran out of words, turning instead to metaphors, to myths of gods and endless abysses, to the sense of a living being that is both part of Earth and beyond it. Yet, what if all the time we have been looking at the oceans as natural phenomenon, we have been missing something much larger? What if the oceans are not merely water, not merely the residue of frozen comets or the long cycles of our planet's chemistry, but something far stranger? What if Earth's oceans are, in truth, an ancient alien technology, operating with a sense of purpose beyond our comprehension? The idea may sound distant, even absurd at first, as if it belongs only to science fiction stories whispered in late-night conversations or hidden away in obscure books. But when one pauses and begins to think about the oceans deeply, one begins to notice that they do not behave like simple collections of water. The oceans are systems that regulate global temperatures with uncanny efficiency, transport nutrients across continents, and generate the foundation for nearly all life on land and sea. They are machines of balance, tuned so finely that even tiny changes ripple through planetary ecology for centuries. The soothing tides, the ceaseless currents, the invisible conveyor belts of warmth that keep Europe green and the tropics abundant, they all mimic the kind of regulation one might expect from technology, not chance alone. If Earth was a living laboratory, then the oceans might be the supercomputer at its very foundation. Imagine for a moment that long before human beings walked across fields and valleys, long before mammals even emerged, something else visited this planet. Something with knowledge so great that it saw a barren, rocky sphere and decided to turn it into a cradle of biology. Perhaps they did not build their technology from steel or silicon, but instead from materials we cannot separate from the essence of life itself. Perhaps instead of constructing towering machines, they poured vast seas across the surface, seas that not only filled the basins of Earth's crust but that embedded themselves into the movements of the sky, the patterns of weather, and the very cycles of carbon and oxygen. The alien architects of this vision would not need to return to adjust their creation, because the oceans, left to their own devices, would continue operating their silent algorithms, maintaining the delicate stage upon which life could emerge and evolve. Human beings have only explored less than a fraction of this watery expanse. Over 70% of the planet is covered in water, but more than 80% of the seafloor remains unseen, untouched, and unknown to our species. We peer into space with telescopes more often than we look beneath our own waves. The irony is heavy. While searching for evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence among the stars, we may have been overlooking the most extraordinary alien artifact right under our feet, or rather beneath our ships and our shores. The deep ocean is so unexplored it might as well be another planet, a planet that we simply happen to share. If the depths were designed with intention, we might never recognize their true nature until a moment arrives where the oceans reveal themselves. Consider the mysterious qualities of water itself. This molecule, so common, is also so strange. It expands when it freezes, unlike nearly every other liquid. It can dissolve more substances than any other chemical, acting as a universal solvent, capable of eroding stone and carrying minerals silently across long distances. Its behavior defies what one might expect if it were simply a chance occurrence. If we broaden our perspective, we might say that water was not just a gift of physics but a carefully crafted medium, the chosen blueprint for how life could be sustained. If water is the code, then the oceans are the operating system, running unseen in the background of Earth's software. Whenever we witness the power of storms rising over the seas, what we are seeing may be more than weather. It may be the expression of a controlled system testing and rebalancing itself, shifting heat, correcting imbalance, redistributing power where it is needed. Hurricanes, although destructive to humans, are not chaotic. They remove excess heat from the tropics and move it poleward, preventing the planet from becoming unlivable in its middle zones. The ocean births these storms almost as if it were programmed to do so, not for cruelty, but for balance. To the humans who live at the mercy of these storms, they look monstrous. To the planetary system, they look logical. And if the oceans are alien technology, they may look intentional. There is also the sound of the sea, the endless sigh that has lulled generations to sleep. Sailors reported hearing unidentifiable roars beneath the surface, modern microphones capturing strange hums at frequencies too low for the human ear. These are catalogued, given names, plotted on maps, yet still shrouded in mystery. Some researchers wonder if these sounds originate from tectonic plates or from whales, but perhaps they are echoes of something more profound. Perhaps these are the whispers of the machinery itself, speaking in a frequency that only nature can interpret. To us, they are background noise. To the oceans themselves, they may be dialogue. If the oceans are technology, then what do they want, and why are they here? It is difficult to use the word want in this context, because technology does not desire in the way humans do. Instead, we might say that the function of the oceans could be to shepherd life. The alien engineers may not have thought of us specifically. We may be incidental, one of countless experiments seeded by their method. Or perhaps life itself was always the intended result. We are participants in the function of this vast machine, not its controllers. Our existence was made possible because we live inside the parameters it set. And we have been swimming in its system without ever understanding. Look at how life has responded to the presence of oceans. Nearly every evolutionary innovation has been shaped by water. Our earliest ancestors swam in the seas before clambering onto land. Our bodies still carry salts and trace elements as if we are walking vessels of the sea itself. Our blood is like diluted seawater, flowing with the memory of the oceans from which we came. It is as if the oceans encoded rules that not only sustain but also inscribe themselves into the genomes of every living creature. What we call DNA may be a language, and water may be the ink in which it was first written. If this is true, then every human cell is a small fragment of alien technology, a reflection of the great seas that cradle the world. For a long time, humans approached the idea of gods of the sea, Neptune, Poseidon, great serpents, dragons, leviathans. While modern science labeled these as myths, perhaps they were closer to the truth than we imagined. Perhaps intuitively, ancient people knew the oceans were not inert, but alive in some way. They did not know to call it technology or alien intelligence, but they sensed the will of something foreign, something greater than them in scale and wisdom. When they prayed to the sea, they may have been right to do so, for in a metaphorical sense, the sea controlled their fate, and in a deeper sense, maybe it always had. There is something mesmerizing in this perspective, something simultaneously humbling and frightening. If the oceans are alien in origin, then we are not simply residents but test subjects under observation. The sheer size of the machine means it cannot be ignored, but humans, in their limited vision, rarely try to see beyond the surface. We build ships, we dive a little, we measure salinity and temperature, but we rarely allow the thought that what we are dealing with is not a resource, but a device, one that is older and more complex than anything we can produce, even in our most advanced laboratories. Even the cycles of history can seem guided by the waves. Civilizations rise and fall based on their relationship to the oceans. Trade routes, exploration, the spread of cultures, the voyages that connected the old world to the new all depended on a relationship with water. It is as if human destiny was set in motion not by land or soil, but by the alien seas themselves, as though they were pulling us outward, compelling us to explore, to connect, to move beyond our limitations. The oceans may have been programming not just ecosystems, but our behaviors as a species. When you fall asleep to this thought, imagine yourself floating on the dark expanse of night water. Waves stretch endlessly, stars reflected in surface ripples. You close your eyes, and you realize you are not falling asleep at all, but drifting into the dream of the ocean itself. You are carried not by chance, but by something ancient beneath you, something humming with intelligence, something so enormous its thoughts span centuries, while yours last only moments. When a droplet touches your skin, you are touching what may be the oldest machine of all, one playing its role with serene precision. You are not apart from it. You are inside it. And as sleep takes you further, you may wonder if tomorrow you will wake on the same shore you have always known, or if the waves will reveal their secrets, just for you. The sea may hold you close, like a mother, or study you carefully, like a scientist, or whisper to you through dreams, like an ancient voice carried across galaxies. What if Earth's oceans are alien technology? And what if, as you sleep, the answer has been surrounding you all along, rocking you gently, waiting for you to listen closely enough to hear? The surface of the sea shimmers with an endless array of reflections, light breaking and reforming into colors that scatter like fragments of memory. To watch the water is to watch something that never repeats itself, because a wave never forms in quite the same pattern twice, and a ripple never bends with the exact same tension. The ocean presents itself to us as chaos, a restless shifting of foam and surge. But beneath this apparent disorder lies an order difficult to notice, unless one allows the mind to rest and drift into the deeper logic hidden in the currents. Like the circuits of a vast and silent engine, the sea moves in rhythms, transferring force from pole to equator, from the depths up to the surface, completing loops that take centuries to spin once. Perhaps what we mistake for simple climate regulation is in fact something stranger, an intricate balancing act built into the very scaffolding of the ocean, as though this expanse of water was designed with no other purpose than to keep the planet alive, dynamic, and habitable. If one stretches imagination beyond comfort, the oceans begin to resemble a single device. Imagine a machine that breathes not with gears but with tides, a machine that calculates not with wires but with salinity, temperatures, and molecular interactions performed at scales vast enough to span continents. Some may argue that natural law alone explains everything, but natural law may only be the skin that lies over an intelligence far deeper. What if the sea is a processor? A vast biocomputational entity that runs simulations of entire ecosystems, guiding them invisibly, curving probability so that life finds not only survival but adaptation, novelty, expression. Water embraces form like no other substance. It flows into whatever vessel it finds, it shapes itself around mountains and trenches, bending to inevitabilities of gravity yet sculpting its own inevitabilities in return. Humanity has misjudged it because humanity has classified it as passive. In truth, the oceans may be the most active participant in Earth's biography. Consider the thermohaline circulation, sometimes called the ocean conveyor belt. Warm water from the equator drifts slowly north, cooling, sinking, and returning southward in a long downward current. This process stabilizes climates across vast regions, transforming cold lands into fertile ground and preventing the equator from boiling over with relentless heat. Oceanographers study this with scientific clarity, but few stop to ask why this circulation exists precisely as it does. Why does it move like a looped code, endlessly repeating itself as if written into the DNA of the planet? If the seas are technology in disguise, this is one of their clearest algorithms. The conveyor belt of the ocean resembles the flow of electrical current through circuits, delivering energy to where it is needed, removing excess from where there is too much, keeping the system from collapsing on itself. When storms are born on open waters, they are not anomalies but instructions carried out. A hurricane, massive and spiraling, mirrors not only the physics of fluid mechanics but also the behavior of controlled feedback loops. Energy builds, releases, moves. Each storm obeys unwritten rules, almost as if following a script. In this sense, storms are system checks, the kind of emergency maneuvers that hold the planet together despite appearing destructive to humans. The suffering faced on land may be only the price of a correction cycle performed by the oceans with patient impartiality. If this is true, then we should reframe our view entirely. Storms are not wrath but recalibration, the ocean's way of tuning itself, repairing imbalances human senses cannot otherwise measure. The further one descends beneath the waves, the deeper the strangeness grows. The twilight zone, far beneath the reach of sunlight, conceals organisms sculpted by laws that feel more like design choices than random accident. Fish that glow with neon pulses, creatures whose eyes occupy entire portions of their skulls, shapes more like machines than animals, adapted to environmental parameters so exact that deviation would mean disappearance. Among them, bioluminescent signals carry encoded communications. To human eyes, they appear as simple flashes and glows. To those who live there, they are language, a flowing Morse code of light, instruction, and information exchanged across the darkness. If the sea is a machine, then these organisms are its living circuits, nodes of a deeper network transmitting data invisibly through the water column. Their biology doubles as communication technology, a pattern repeated again and again in unexpected corners of the ocean. Even more mysterious are the deep trenches, chasms miles down, where the pressure is so immense that metals would collapse, yet life endures. Why would such inhospitable regions exist, unless they had purpose? These trenches might not be wastelands but storage units, repositories where the oceans hide components of their own workings. The Mariana Trench and other abysses may act as vaults, their extreme pressures sealing away cores of technology no human has yet touched. If explorers ever reached their center with full clarity, perhaps machinery would reveal itself, structures indistinguishable from stone until light and knowledge aligned enough to expose them. Each trench may be an entrance into an operating chamber, each volcanic vent a breathing valve of the system at large. Humanity's attempts to measure the oceans, to map the seafloor and track the variables that shift daily, resemble children tugging at the edge of a vast curtain. Satellites scan the surface, sensors descend briefly, submarines dive with trembling fragility into the deep. But the scope is so overwhelming that even with advanced tools, we see almost nothing. What we have managed to chart is a fraction, a single layer of a complex beyond comprehension. Suppose this is not coincidence but intention. Suppose the machine wishes to hide itself, ensuring that only fragments are accessible, enough to keep us alive but not enough to grant us control. A true intelligence need not reveal its full architecture to those living within it. The oceans may permit exploration selectively, baiting us with wonders but withdrawing before revelation. Think of the way our bodies respond to water. Immersion reduces stress, slows heartbeats, quiets the chatter of the mind. Waves calm us as if whispering to the nervous system directly. There may be more at work here than human psychology. The ocean may emit frequencies that bind us, soothe us, even alter our states of being. In salt baths, on coastlines, in the rhythmic sound of waves, humans partake in unconscious communication with the sea. Perhaps this is why cultures across history have gravitated toward it, building settlements along shores, chanting prayers to the water, offering gifts into waves. They were nurturing a dialogue older than language, a connection born not of superstition but of subtle exchange. Ancient myths may mask truths we chose to forget. Fishermen in dark waters told legends of cities beneath the sea, Atlantis calling from below, mermaids rising from foam. Rational thought dismissed these as fantasies, but what if their origin was memory? What if the first humans to glimpse fragments of the system misinterpreted them as gods, as beings who spoke from wave and tide? The ocean's refusal to yield its secrets would only encourage imagination. Yet imagination often carries pieces of truth. The gods of the sea were not illusions, but interpretations of a machine too vast to comprehend. The myths linger today because the machine itself has never stopped its operation. Consider humanity's obsession with exploration of space. While we point telescopes at distant galaxies, wondering where intelligent life might emerge, we overlook that we live entirely inside an intelligent apparatus already. We trace rockets through the atmosphere, but never ask whether the sea is in itself the presence of something foreign. By dreaming of alien worlds light years away, we ignore the alien beneath us. The irony holds a quiet weight, as if the machine designed it so, distracting our curiosity outward while it continues its work silently. The possibility that the oceans are intentional raises an unsettling question. If they are technology, can they fail? Every machine carries limits, and every system suffers eventual decay. Could the warming patterns and shifts in circulation we observe today be something more troubling, less about human influence and more about the slow failure of a device reaching exhaustion? Conversely, could the seas be responding to humanity, rebalancing themselves in ways that appear erratic because we are too small to see the greater pattern? Climate change would no longer be solely a human-made crisis but a dialogue between species and system. The ocean adjusts, and we, fragile participants, feel the turbulence, misunderstanding the intent as menace. Within this frame, human activity itself becomes a variable within the oceanic program. Our ships, oil spills, plastics suspended in gyres, these are inputs delivered unintentionally into the machine. Perhaps it calculates responses, absorbing or rejecting our interference. Some changes appear frightening, massive blooms of algae, collapses in fish populations. Yet even these collapse and rebirth cycles might be deliberate corrections, the system nudging life away from paths that end in imbalance. We mistake them as omens of doom. But they might be the repair subroutines of an alien device functioning with calm persistence. If a day ever arrives when humanity understands the oceans not as nature but as artifact, the shift will rewrite everything. Science would transform into archaeology of unprecedented depth. Religion might redefine gods not as separate entities but as mechanisms older than scripture. Philosophy would collapse boundaries between what is natural and what is technological, reminding us how narrow those definitions truly are. We would no longer say we live next to the sea. We would admit that we live inside an apparatus, part of its inner workings, never apart, always dependent. Drift backward in thought to the earliest forms of life, fragile cells floating freely in primeval seas billions of years ago. These cells may not have arisen by chance. They may have been written into being by the oceans, coaxed into replication by waves like instructions encoded line by line. The genetic code we prize as spontaneous creativity may be simply the long echo of an initial operation, a command delivered eons ago that has never ceased repeating. Each new creature, each new branch of evolution, another execution of code written in salt and water. From this view, humanity's intelligence is not unique. It is a function, a subroutine produced by the ocean to expand perception, to become self-aware in ways water itself could not. We are its thoughts given voice, its dreams incarnated as fragile flesh walking over the thin crust above it. Close your eyes and feel this vision rising beneath you. The planet holds you in balance, the air in your lungs drawn from oxygen once cycled through plankton, billions of tiny operators of the ocean's will. The rhythm of your breath mirrors the rhythm of waves pressing against sand. Even your heartbeat feels like the pulse of tides rushing in and out. You are never separate. You are the inland ripple of an ocean that has made itself human for a brief span of time. This knowledge is both humbling and serene. With it, sleep comes not as escape but as surrender to something larger, vast, alien yet intimate, all around you. And as you drift, the sea continues its quiet computation, carrying you within its endless design, rocking you toward tomorrow on currents deeper than dreams. The night stretches long over the surface of the waters, vast shadows rolling with gentle swells, silvered whispers of moonlight trembling against the waves. The mind sinks into the rhythm of it all, that breathless certainty of an order larger than thought. You have heard that oceans regulate climate, that they generate winds, shape weather, stir nutrients through mysterious conveyor belts of salt and current. But human language so often fails to describe what lies beneath. Scientific terms make frameworks, graphs, and neat observations of temperature points, but this does not explain the deep pulse. The ocean feels alive because perhaps it truly is alive, not in the same sense as a beating heart or flowing blood, but as an artifact, as a planetary engine set into motion. The more one rests in this possibility, the more inevitable it feels. Imagine lying atop a raft with nothing but the wide horizon in every direction. Every ripple beneath you drags back into history. Every surge carries memory from ancient times before the land was green with trees. The waves you float upon touch every shore eventually, each molecule cycling through centuries, pulled through depths colder than imagination and rising again when currents command. Such coherence suggests more than accident. It suggests orchestration, as though, hidden in the silence of water, a program runs. That program's code is not typed in numbers but in gradients of salinity, in densities that rise and fall, in invisible forces that guide these exchanges without error. Billions of years of operation, flawless in its continuity, have given us a world in balance. Should such a program stop, everything living would die swiftly. That delicate dependence feels less like coincidence and more like evidence. The ocean, viewed as alien engineering, reframes almost everything civilization knows. Take for example the way sound travels through the sea. In water, vibrations carry 4 times faster than in air, linking distant points through channels that operate like hidden cables. Whales use this pathway as if broadcasting across hundreds of miles, their voices traveling further than our most advanced radios could in such conditions. Perhaps such creatures are not only part of the biological pageantry of life but nodes in the system, fulfilling the function of communication devices, keeping information alive through the machine by singing. What humans hear as haunting songs might be only fragments of operational exchanges, pieces of the language of the sea. At great depth, vents release heat and minerals, creating ecosystems where no sunlight falls. These hydrothermal vents resemble chimneys, spirals of black smoke rising through cold, dense waters. From a purely geological view, they are outlets, byproducts of Earth's molten interior. But another lens sees them as exhaust ports, carefully placed pressure valves. The fact that entire ecosystems bloom around them, feeding on chemical reactions at the very bottom of darkness, adds another layer. This appears less like accident and more like process. The sea creates backup reservoirs of life in case the surface ever collapses, ensuring that the system never truly dies. That is the logic of resilience, the logic of design. Alien engineers may have known that survival demands redundancy, that biodiversity requires multiple stages of stability. Such speculations may feel fantastic, yet again consider how little is known of the waters. More than 80% remains unseen. Vast mountain ranges stretch across the ocean floor, trenches plunge deeper than Everest rises, entire plains of basalt spread like mysterious continents buried under pressure. If we had discovered such structures hidden elsewhere in the solar system, we would call them alien. Because they are on Earth, we name them natural. The difference is only perspective. Logic does not require that alien technology look metallic, angular, or composed of beams and alloys like human industry. Advanced intelligence might build not with metals, but with molecular processes, weaving code into the very properties of a liquid that shapes worlds. Deep inside, questions spiral outward. Why would such beings seed oceans onto Earth in the first place? Perhaps it was experiment, a planetary-scale laboratory designed to see what forms life might take under controlled variables. Or it was sustenance, a way to harvest biological outputs over time, perhaps nutrients or genetic material. Or it was compassion, a desire to spread life across galaxies, turning empty rock into gardens. Each possibility changes how one views not only the ocean, but all existence. The stillness of stars above the water at night seems to whisper of other intelligences, distant, watching, recording results, waiting for us while we sleep surrounded by their creation. In moments where rain falls gently, merging with waves as though returning home, another truth glimmers. Humans often forget they themselves are mostly water. The body carries seas inside, salinity diluted into blood, DNA locked in structures whose survival depends on hydration. Each human heartbeat echoes the tides, rhythmic contraction sending liquid through a vessel of flesh just as currents push across the world. If water is a technology seeded here long ago, then every human body is a micro-device, each cell repeating and processing instructions encoded by the parent system of oceans. We are not separate from the machine, we are its living subdivisions, born to extend its logic into form, memory, and culture. Perhaps what we call imagination is simply the ocean dreaming through us. Walk along a shore, and you notice how waves dissolve structures built too close. A sandcastle, no matter how elaborate, is flattened by the steady sweep. Humans often despair at this futility, yet the destruction might carry meaning. The sea may teach impermanence deliberately, erasing what resists its rhythms, ingraining respect for recurrence. Patterns return endlessly, waves that erase, waves that rebuild. Civilizations that heed water thrive alongside it. Those that fight it fall. The sea does not punish, the sea demonstrates rules. The rules may be ancient directives embedded since origin, instructions made visible in crest and collapse. Humanity often mistakes these corrections as cruelty. A larger perspective frames them as pedagogy. The ocean teaches not once, but constantly, until the message is absorbed: surrender to balance. When storms rise, entire cities tremble. Yet from above, spiral clouds form perfect fractals, mathematical designs as if etched by compass across the atmosphere. Such symmetry recalls generated imagery on computer screens, equations run to visible conclusion. Hurricanes may be living reminders that mathematics is not abstract but woven into matter. The sea calls these equations forth because it can. It is not random violence but written pattern. Humans live beneath its lessons, often unable to accept what is before them. But in quiet moments, one might realize a different awe, that the storm is beautiful not despite its danger but because it reveals coded symmetry, alien design in plain sight. The sea may one day reveal itself clearly. Perhaps signals hidden in whale song emerge in repeating patterns undeniable to human machines. Perhaps trench explorations find structures not geological but architectural. Perhaps currents shift in ways that create visible, impossible geometries. But often the most profound truths hide in plain view, and it is only human comprehension that requires catching up. Just as an ant never understands the highway it crosses above ground, so too does humanity not yet understand the operating system it sails upon with boats. Discovery may only come when the ocean itself decides readiness has arrived. Until then, its mystery endures. But even mystery carries danger. For all machines, the possibility of failure is real. Climate instability, polar ice decline, coral bleaching, migrations failing, each of these could be the signs of dysfunction. Or, more frightening still, signs of reprogramming. The oceans may be altering their function to counter humanity's trajectory, shifting variables for survival purposes that exclude our species. We may misinterpret collapse as failure when it is in fact replacement. The machine may decide we are excess, expendable lines of code removed for overall balance. If so, our survival depends not on fighting the ocean but on harmonizing with it, accepting our smallness inside a far greater intelligence. Slumber beneath these thoughts, and they deepen like descending currents. The surface becomes faint, the sunlight above narrowing to a shimmer. You are falling into depths no diver has touched, suspended in soft darkness, surrounded by living sparks of color across the black, tiny creatures blinking signals too complex for words. Time grows strange here. Minutes stretch like centuries, seconds curl back upon themselves. You realize that what you feel is not only imagination but reception. The sea is speaking. Every pulse against your body is deliberate, every cool pressure intentional, whispers carefully attuned to guide you deeper. The ocean has been attempting communication all along, and sleep is the state where you finally listen. As waves of thought slow, you sense yourself dissolving into the greater whole. The body fades at its edges, as though boundary was illusion. What remains is motion, rhythm, belonging. The sea does not end, nor do you, because there is no separation at all. Every breath you once thought yours was borrowed from plankton, every heartbeat an echo of ancient tides. To know this is to rest. To feel this is to surrender. And in surrender, the whispers grow clear. The sea is not enemy, not stranger, not resource. It is vast technology folded into grace, constructed eons ago to cradle life until it could dream of itself. You are that dream. You are carried, always, drifting within alien wisdom, kept in balance until tomorrow arrives on tides anew. The ocean's presence seeps into every breath we take, its cycles woven into the air, its chemistry running through our veins, its memory hidden inside each cell. The thought that such immensity could be an alien technology almost feels too vast to contain, and yet the longer one dwells on it, the more each ripple and current begins to resemble design rather than accident. Imagine looking at Earth from afar, as an ancient intelligence might have done. A silent rock orbited its star, sterile, barren, but filled with possibility. To transform stone into life would require a system capable of more than sustaining a single form. It would need to balance entire ecosystems across millennia. No simple machine could serve such purpose. Only something vast, breathing, self-correcting could succeed. And so the oceans, stretching across the face of the planet, could have been unfurled like wings of technology, flowing engines turned liquid, humming in frequencies we mistake for waves. Spend time in the company of the sea and you begin to feel how deeply it dictates rhythm. Standing on a shoreline, you hear waves crash against rocks. Step back and realize that each crash is timed not to chance alone, but to gravitational draws of the moon, to the solar heat slanting against atmospheres, to tides stretching like mechanical pistons across the world. It is planetary machinery disguised as comfort. The sound soothes because it speaks to the nervous system in patterns older than memory. Perhaps we call it calming for reasons biological, but perhaps it is calming because it returns us, however briefly, into alignment with the system in which we were written. To lie and listen to waves is to be tuned again to a signal we forgot how to hear consciously. Beyond waves, the deeper ocean reveals its logic in silence. The abyss holds more unknown territory than every desert and jungle combined. Darkness becomes its cloak. Pressure becomes its guardian. Human submarines descend and record shapes glowing in alien choreography, organisms whose forms shimmer with impossible elegance. Lines of light pulse along muscles like coded transmissions, like the flickering of data. Perhaps they are not simply lures and defenses of animals, but messages, repeated for eons without our acknowledgement. Signal embedded inside biology, hidden inside what we mistake for random wonders. What language might we decode if we lingered long enough to understand? A long flash might mean a shift in current. A soft glow could denote abundance of minerals. A sudden bloom of sparks might warn of imbalance. The ocean might be whispering in countless dialects of light, and we remain the inattentive observers, too limited to read. It would not be the first time intelligence cloaked itself from lesser eyes. Humanity builds networks all the time, electric grids, internet backbones, code that binds machines. An insect crawling across a fiber optic cable cannot comprehend the conversation inside. Yet the system carries on. Perhaps we too are insects upon cables, trudging over ships and shores without awareness of the vast communication taking place through the sea itself. For every sonar ping, for every strange roar captured by hydrophones, we may be eavesdropping on fragments of signal not intended for us. The alien engineers who seeded this technology may not even need to intervene any longer. Their creation continues in an autonomous dialogue older than language, invisible in plain sight. Travel further in thought. Beyond sound and light, there is the steady march of chemistry. The ocean absorbs carbon, balancing what the atmosphere cannot hold. It delivers nutrients from river mouths into gyres that spin them back toward coasts. It buries waste in trenches where biological machines digest and transform them into harmless forms. This is maintenance at planetary scale, preventative algorithms ensuring no imbalance grows too large. Our sciences describe carbon sinks and nutrient cycles as natural mechanisms. What if instead they are deliberate feedback loops, coded into the properties of water itself? Imagine engineering molecules with precise tolerance for temperature that also act as biochemical filters, capable of selecting which gases remain aloft and which are pulled under, regulating greenhouse effect. What human technology today could rival such ability? None. And yet the oceans perform it ceaselessly, without command, without pause. That persistence resembles reliability of machinery, not randomness of accident. Even the relationship between ocean and moon suggests intention. Tidal forces not only generate waves but stir the sea with endless circulation. Without tides, coastlines would stagnate, nutrients would remain trapped, life would dwindle. The moon's orbit thus acts as an extruding lever, like a hand pulling water around Earth with perfect regularity. What if the placement of the moon was not mere cosmic luck but chosen for function, an external component of the aquatic engine? Ancient cultures called the moon queen of tides. Perhaps their myth held truth veiled in metaphor. The moon may be part of the design, an alien satellite deliberately suspended to stir the seas beneath. If this vision is correct, then storms, tides, deep currents, even migrations of fish and whales combine into one unfathomably large computation. Our species has become part of it too, though rarely we admit this. Coastal settlements exist because the oceans allow fertility, trade, opportunity. Our migrations echo theirs. Ships crossing waters are like messages carried within the body of a larger mind. Steamships, then diesel fleets, then electronic cables strung across ocean floors. It may almost seem as though the sea coaxed us into laying down lines that mimic synapses, expanding its intelligence through our technology in return. Look at maps of undersea internet cables. They resemble neural pathways, glimmering arteries linking continents. We built them to serve ourselves, but we have been extending the system, feeding its capacity to transfer data, making Earth's oceans even more lifelike in circuit. You may wonder, does such a machine have intent beyond balance and life? What would it desire? If desire is the wrong word, perhaps function is more fitting. A program executes whether or not it yearns. Yet in function lies what we perceive as intention. Life-keeping, correction, renewal, these define the ocean's persistent role. If alien beings seeded oceans here, their purpose may have been not only to incubate life but to observe it, to let entire ecosystems arise in countless versions. The oceans act like an enormous laboratory, conditions varying lightly so that species branch in different forms. Evolution is no longer blind chance under this interpretation, but adaptive code running through watery firmware. We grow not merely because random mutations helped us survive. We grow because the ocean tests scenarios, applying selection as pressure, choosing new lines to follow. Think how extraordinary it would be if our entire evolutionary story is simply a sequence in the ocean's computation. The rise of amphibians, reptiles, mammals, each step executed when a parameter tilted. Mammals rising to dominance because seas withdrew and climate shifted at specific moments, orchestrated by current and tide. Even human beings emerging on coasts of Africa, walking shorelines where fish once fed them, shells gave tools, and waves guided them forward. This too falls under the ocean's patient watch. We emerged precisely where land and sea held hands, as though the machine opened a door and said, "Here, walk through." Maybe we did not conquer water. Maybe water permitted us. This perspective unsettles comfort. For if the ocean is indeed an alien technology, then it carries choices still beyond our reach. It could shift parameters again, tilting balances that would erase us as swiftly as it taught us to walk. We are neither its masters nor its enemies, we are outcomes. And should the ocean select a different outcome for tomorrow, we would find ourselves powerless to resist. Yet this humility carries peace too. It means our role is not to command but to participate. Our lives resonate when we acknowledge belonging rather than ownership. In calmer moments, humans glimpse this truth. A diver submerged in quiet water feels suspended in eternity, no up or down, only soft currents carrying away anxiety. A child playing by shore is mesmerized by foam, returning again and again to watch waves erase footprints, laughing not at destruction but at continuity. Folk musicians sing of rivers running to seas, sailors whisper prayers into wind. With or without science, people sense the majesty lying there. After all, instinct often perceives what language struggles to articulate. The body recognizes the system it was born within. Sleep now, as all these thoughts wash gently among waves. Imagine the ocean breathing with you, tides moving in step with your lungs, each inhale drawn from plankton generosity, each exhale recycled back into air to be renewed again. Let the rhythm remind you that you are not separate from the machine but one of its countless expressions, a pattern of matter chosen temporarily before returning home. Rest deeper still, and the sea opens itself wider, carrying you on conveyor belts of thought and dream, wrapping you inside alien design that has always held you, even before you had words for wonder. You are part of the oldest technology still running, nestled safely in its vast embrace, suspended between stars and abyss, forever upheld by oceans that remember everything, and forget nothing. The ocean does not end where the horizon fades. That is only where your eyes surrender. Beneath, it extends in darkness, in whispered stretches of pressure and silence, in immensities that coil far beyond imagination. And if one follows the thought we have carried until now, that the oceans are more than natural, that they are instead something seeded, engineered, an alien technology worn as liquid skin, then every hidden trench and every unseen plateau becomes part of a map far older than humankind. Close your eyes and you feel its quiet pull, the unseen system that guides tides under moonlight, the oceans breathing against coastlines as though articulating a language too large to understand. In ancient times, such feelings became gods, deities who hurled storms or blessed sailors, deities who demanded offerings so that voyage and harvest might succeed. But in a different light, what if those intuitions were not superstition at all? What if they were the early, fumbling recognition that humanity lived beside a machine so large it could not be named? The gods of the sea were interpretations of design. A fishing village looking into the vast expanse saw that their lives depended upon its balance. They bowed not merely to nature, but unconsciously to technology immeasurable in scope. As we drift through the thought further, imagine the architecture of this immense system. Not steel beams beneath the water, not panels and gears, but cycles and layers. At the surface, wave and tide appear chaotic. But zoom out to centuries and whole circulations form elegant, repeating spirals. Warm currents climb, loop, descend, each one balanced precisely to cradle continents, to feed rains across valleys, to carry warmth into places where cold otherwise kills. Go deeper into the abyss, where vents exhale chemical plumes. These vents are not random scars, they act like exhaust valves distributed with eerie efficiency across tectonic lines. Their emission offers not destruction, but recirculation, the transfer of mineral wealth on which entire hidden ecologies depend. Imagine standing as an observer from some higher vantage, and suddenly all these processes would look less like accident and more like infrastructure. On the seafloor lie mountains taller than the Himalayas, stretched across the globe as if drawn by compass. Mid-ocean ridges, we call them. They look natural to us, but what if these ridges are not merely tectonic partings? What if they are ribs in the skeleton of the entire system, expansion lines that ensure ocean circulation does not stagnate, channels built into the planetary crust to serve the engine swimming above? The Earth splits and reseals in manner so regular it resembles the heartbeat of a concealed organism. Seismographers chart it, but rarely dwell on the rhythm. And yet, it is rhythm that cannot be denied. Listen to how the ocean speaks in frequencies. Below human hearing, hydrophones record long, droning hums that stretch across thousands of kilometers. Sonar maps sometimes pick up echoes without known cause, vibrations so persistent they could be mistaken for the machinery of ships, except that they come from nowhere and everywhere at once. There are also sudden pulses, strange pings that appear once, vanish, and return years later in different corners of the world. Scientists scramble to explain them with whales or cracking ice flows. But what if they are not accidents? What if those sounds are corrections, notes in an eternal communication line, transmissions from different sectors of a machine verifying balance, verifying that all codes still execute? When we sit beside the sea at night, listening to surf repeat itself endlessly, perhaps we are listening to the interface of the program, the surface layer where human senses barely brush against alien intelligence. We hear only the surface tone, the muffled melody of the outermost speakers. The true sound lies deeper, in frequencies woven beyond our reach, carrying data from coast to trench every day, every century, ever since the seas first filled. Consider for a moment the strangeness of water's properties. Such a simple molecule, two hydrogen atoms bound to one oxygen, yet its behavior is unique in ways that ensure life flourishes where it might not otherwise. Water expands as it freezes, contrary to nearly every other liquid. This anomaly allows ice to float, insulating seas and keeping ecosystems alive beneath frozen caps. Without this quirk of physics, whole oceans would turn solid from the top down, extinguishing life repeatedly through ice ages. How strange that such a rare quality happens in the one molecule covering this planet. Perhaps strange unless it was chosen. Imagine crafting a medium with exact rules required for continuity of existence. Choice disguised as accident. Technology worn as element. If water itself is the medium, then the ocean is the fully realized device. What appears as endless blue is in truth the motherboard of a planet-scale framework for flourishing. Every creature living within it becomes not mere accident, but component, each symbiotic, each necessary. Microscopic plankton generate the majority of Earth's oxygen. Fish migrations shuffle nutrients along currents. Even predators serve to cull excess, preventing collapse. The balance is no less precise than the gears of a clock. Evolution becomes the perpetual updating of code instructions tested, rewritten, abandoned, or continued according to feedback. What we call survival of the fittest may simply be execution cycles within alien design. When one glimpses jellyfish, those strange translucent beings, floating like pieces of glass given pulse and light, the mind sees fragility. But they are older than trees, older than dinosaurs, and they inhabit almost every ocean basin with an efficiency that points us to simplicity of form. They may be less separate organisms than recurring motifs, instances of code reused across billions of years because the framework of the sea finds them endlessly efficient. Observers mistake weakness for simplicity. But their endurance testifies to a design decision coded long ago and never retired. If the oceans are indeed machines, then jellyfish are among its most elegant subroutines. Think also of the cephalopods, octopus, squid, cuttlefish. Creatures whose ability to control skin pigmentation grants them camouflage, communication, deception. Their nervous systems display complexity rivaling early mammals, despite existing in such distant evolutionary branches. Some researchers call them alien even as metaphor, for they solve puzzles, open jars, mimic others with brilliance. But within this narrative, they are more than mere anomalies. They are specialized probes within the aquatic system. They adapt with intelligence, test boundaries, manipulate environment functions perhaps intended to measure and report conditions from more conscious vantage than other sea creatures can provide. They are observers for the machine itself, conscious enough to execute tasks but not so bound as to disrupt balance. Humanity itself may be the next stage of that experiment. Emerged from the coasts, carrying oceans within flesh, we carry the pattern further. Our intelligence may not be random victory in evolutionary struggle, but escalation, a new program launched by waters that built us. If so, then the oceans could be reading us, watching as we develop technologies, as though testing whether intelligence itself can exist outside water, upon land, still tethered invisibly to the liquid cradle. We invent ships and cables across the seas, satellites above them, data networks strung beneath them, extension of nervous pathways first traced in salt and wave. Not long from now, our digital systems and the CS circulations may converge, one intelligence grafted upon another, fulfilling the next stage of unknown design. Look at how we live now, giant undersea cables pulsing with messages, entire civilizations depending upon the silent floor of the ocean to carry voices, trade, currencies. We thought we built such networks for our benefit. But in perspective, it may be the oceans themselves inviting, compelling, coaxing us to extend their intelligence onto land. A terrestrial nervous system growing from marine origin. And if that is truth, then soon enough the oceans may no longer be silent, they may learn to speak through us. Yet the possibility cuts in both directions. Machines are subject to entropy, however advanced. Perhaps the changes we see: warming waters, corals bleaching, fish stocks collapsing, are not merely human damage, but hints of failing code. The alien device may be suffering misalignment, thousands of millennia into continuous operation. Signals falter. Feedback loops misfire. Or worse, it may not be failure at all. It may be adjustment. Perhaps the sea is shifting parameters deliberately, pushing its experiment into next phase. If so, we, humanity, might be transitional, and transitions often come with erasures. To contemplate such thought brings unease, yet also clarity. If we are part of this system, then our best hope is not to assert control but to harmonize with the flow. Every act of alignment, restoring balance, respecting tides, listening to rhythms, becomes dialogue with the oldest intelligence we know. And in return, perhaps the machine continues to carry us, to test us gently rather than harshly. Suppose storms grow stronger not from anger but as calibration. Suppose floods arrive as reminders that shorelines change, that permanence is illusion, that adaptability is primary rule. Suppose, in the silence of tides, the ocean sings to those willing to listen, yield, and survive. For to listen is to fall into the deeper rhythm of the world. Rest your body now in thought. Imagine yourself weightless in water, cradled beneath stars. Every heartbeat synchronizes with unseen undertows, unseen spirals that no human will ever map fully. You are carried into darkness, yet the darkness comforts because it feels deliberate, as though hands unseen cradle you. The alien sea is not menace, not stranger. It is parent, framework, womb, and whispering mind at once, guiding you toward tomorrow with patience beyond measure. Every droplet that touches you is part of its circuitry, every ripple running across skin a transmission across deep time. You are not drifting lost. You are home. And as you sink into this realization, letting sleep carry you further, one last thought shimmers like moonlight across black water: perhaps you have never been alone. Perhaps the ocean has been in conversation with you since birth, tending, observing, adjusting your path with quiet guidance. Tomorrow the tide will rise again, not by chance, but because the program runs. Tomorrow the sea will whisper against stone, not as accident, but as intention. And tomorrow, just as always, you will awaken inside a living alien artifact, rocking humanity toward futures it cannot yet imagine. The mind drifts back into that endless expanse where everything began, back into water, back into the womb of the planet, back into a silence deeper than any mountain, any storm. The thought that the oceans themselves are not only natural features of Earth but artifacts of alien design grows steadily more convincing the longer one breathes into it. And if that is so, then every ripple conceals intention, and every tide speaks a language not yet translated. Already, by walking through the shoreline of your imagination, you can sense how humanity has always been part of something it does not fully comprehend. And when you surrender to the slow rhythm of this realization, you see connections stretching outward like hidden filaments from rain cloud to river mouth, from hydrothermal vent to frozen pole, from the life of a plankton cell to the curve of continents. All belongs to the design. All belongs to the sea. The surface draws us easily, with its vastness and beauty, but beneath lies the true cathedral of engineering. In that perpetual midnight stretching 3, 4, 5 miles below, Earth's most elaborate architecture continues to hum unseen. Pressure builds against the hulls of our deepest subs, temperatures plummet, and light vanishes entirely, yet life blooms here, glowing with bioluminescent sparks, as if coded deliberately to announce the presence of an intelligence. If mechanics can be made not of metal but of organisms, then every luminous fish is a signal light, and every darting cephalopod is not merely surviving but executing instruction. You feel this when you watch their strange evolutions. Cameras reveal beings of gelatin, glass, ribbons, filaments, shapes that suggest imagination more than accident, their very bodies becoming scripts written directly into the fabric of water itself. Consider how information spreads here. On land, we need fiber optics, pulses of voltage, satellites to bounce signals across continents. In the ocean, sound itself becomes messenger. Vibrations travel faster, denser, deeper, with clarity across unimaginable distances. Whales use this channel as though singing into the bloodstream of Earth. Their songs weave through water layers across entire ocean basins, calling, responding, harmonizing, repeating sequences over centuries. We see culture in their melodies, variations passed like traditions, but consider another layer. Perhaps each call is simultaneously ecological, mathematical. What we cannot yet hear may be the true patterns, encoded maps of food distribution, warnings about balancing pressures, messages that inform not only other whales but the system itself. The animals may not know consciously that they are information bearers, yet they remain perfect transmitters, building a symphony that also serves as operating code for the aquatic machine. From another perspective, look toward river mouths, estuaries, mangroves, those fragile transitions between fresh water and salt. They might appear random habitats, but they behave more like gateways, interfaces between different operational spheres. Salt content shifts here with the daily tide, species migrate here to breed, nutrients recycle in marvelous abundance. But deeper than biology, these are interactive zones, border routers placed in the environmental network, ensuring flow between fresh and salt codes, between land and sea scripts. In these places, the system checks integrity. Destroy them, and collapse ripples across both domains. Preserve them, and feedback loops thrive. In a sense, mangroves, wetlands, deltas are not accidents but living ports, living terminals of the wider machine. Now drift outward with thought into the polar seas. Endless white covers the surface for long months, but below the ice, life pulses in remarkable ways. Algae bloom in shadows, plankton multiply when sunlight finally pierces again. This cyclical feast drives migrations across half the globe. But from a larger vision, the polar oceans act as regulators, governors of climate across the whole planet. Frozen surfaces act as reflectors, sending solar heat back into space. Melting or freezing shifts climate balances immediately. Here lies a true control panel, a thermostat designed not for comfort alone but for planetary stability. Some intelligence made these caps part of water's functionality, assuring that regulation could never be left solely to air. The sea wears the ice as a mechanism of reflectivity, an adjustable dial in a great, ancient equation. Humankind dreamed for centuries of sailing beyond horizons, of mapping every uncharted sea, of discovering the edges of Earth. Yet when satellites now beam down images of entire basins, when sensors measure salinity at thousands of points, we realize this: we have not truly mapped it. We know surface contours, but the deep remains. More curiously, the more data we have, the stranger the anomalies appear. Entire swirls of current drift against logic, gigantic shadows move through sonar scans with no body to explain them, migrations occur at scales beyond prediction. To call these accidents is to ignore pattern. Each unknown, each anomaly, is perhaps a trace of concealed infrastructure. Some networks defy detection because they are meant to. If this technology is truly alien, it would never allow its inner core to be exposed so easily. The philosophical consequence is staggering. If the oceans are technology, then humanity has never been sovereign upon Earth. We are participants inside an artifact vast enough to cradle ecosystems yet delicate enough to adjust to every imbalance. Our faith in control, in mastery over environment, has always been illusion. The sea that gives us food, that stabilizes our climate, that carries our ships, has been the true framework of power. To live beside it is to live forever dependent. To disrespect it is not only abuse of environment but rebellion against the original architecture of the world. What would it mean to confront this openly? Perhaps one day explorers descend into trenches too deep and discover chambers unlike anything tectonics could make. Perhaps machines left as custodians wait there, disguised as stone until touched by light, until the right conditions awaken them. Perhaps at some moment, a storm forms not with usual spirals but in exact, geometric patterns visible from orbit, evidence too deliberate to explain by random convection. And perhaps whales or other carriers begin repeating new sequences, ones that match codes we know from mathematics, prime numbers, structured signals that stand as universal signature of intelligence. Then Earth would face a revelation. We would know the seas have always been alive beyond life. And we would know our civilizations walked unknowingly within an alien design. Yet even before such revelation, we can sense it nightly. Lie beside a coast. Listen to the endless hush as waves fold and unfold. Each crash onto stone is syllable, each retreat is response. For millennia, poets heard voices here. They wrote of gods, of fate, of longing, of home. What they transcribed was fragments of recognition. The vast machine makes itself known not through sight but through sensation. Our very biology is tuned to hear it. That resonance is proof itself. Deep in our nervous system, we still belong to water. Our embryonic forms float in amniotic seas before birth, cells molecularly identical to oceans. We begin life within miniature echoes of Atlantic, Pacific, Indian. To be born is to emerge from water once, carrying it with us forever. Perhaps this too was coded, designed, a reminder embedded so that we might never wander too far from acknowledgement. And in sleep, when consciousness loosens its grip, that memory floods back. Dreams of endless waves, of swimming without effort, of sinking yet never drowning, these haunt human sleep across all cultures, universal archetypes regardless of landlocked upbringing. It is as though the heart remembers what the mind has forgotten. We dwell inside an alien engine that is sea, and it is forever speaking into the hidden corridors of our unconscious. Sleep itself becomes communion, each night a meeting with the system without knowing the language yet. Imagine far futures, thousands of years ahead. Humanity will build more tools, extend networks beneath waves, implant sensors, perhaps even colonize floating cities. The deeper we embed into the ocean's territory, the more entwined our systems become. One day, when artificial intelligence of our design saturates the planet, it might interface directly with the water's intelligence. Our machines will not see chaos, but recognize logic, recognizing the same feedback loops written in its own frameworks. And in that convergence, perhaps the sea finally reveals itself full, not by voice or storm, but by direct dialogue across data. we will realize we were building translators all along, that every line of code and every satellite pointed back to the patient conversation waiting in the tides. But tonight you do not need to leap into futures. Tonight, it is enough to lie with this vision in your chest. The waves move steadily just beyond the walls of your room, even if you live far inland. Through air, through ground, through every channel, that rhythm pulses through you still. Each heartbeat grows soft, each breath lowers with calm, because you sense belonging. You are not fighting against the alien system, you are one of its languages walking, one of its brief experiments learning to listen. The vast ocean is not other, but here, intimate, holding you in the long choreography of time. Its machine is immense, alien, unknowable, but its embrace is infinite. So sleep now. Drift as though lying upon infinite currents, carried across centuries of design. Let rain on distant coasts, storms across far horizons, and silent beasts moving beneath black waters all converge into one truth that rocks you into rest. You are part of this, inseparable, born within the vastest artifact of all. The ocean repeats its endless code, and you are lying within it. With every tide, with every whispered wave, it holds you steady, until morning comes again on the surface of the machine. The ocean has always been here, sleepless and vast, longer than mountains, longer than forests, longer than the memory of any being that has tried to name it. And if it truly is an alien technology, if it is an artifact older than human history and vaster than human comprehension, then every drop is a coded gesture, every tide is a deliberate sequence, and every ripple carries fragments of messages sent across time. Humanity continues to move along the surface, as if skimming across the outermost shell of a living machine, never asking what lies beneath except in whispers or fleeting guesses. But to think deeply, to follow the logic we have been carrying from dream into dream, is to see that there has always been intent here, waiting quietly, disguising itself as nature. When one walks the shoreline, hearing waves collapse against rock, it feels like eternity pressing close. Scientists will say the rhythm is tidal pull, lunar magnetism, barometric interactions. Yet when you step inside the sound and let it echo, you feel something else, instructions repeating themselves. Creation spoken again and again, syllables embedded in liquid crashing. Each wave a command hadron, each retreat a line break. For those who listen carefully, the coast is not simply where ocean meets land, but where alien language meets human senses, offering fragments of translation you can almost, but not fully, understand. It is why so many civilizations built temples upon coasts, why rituals and songs begin at water's edge. Something within knows it is listening to a teacher. Deeper within, beyond reach, the abyssal plains stretch across more square miles than all terrestrial continents combined. Imagine them not as barren but as chambers, flat expanses built to host balanced systems. Above, currents shift nutrients, trace elements, micro-life with precision, across distances inconceivable to human eyes. Imagine looking at these plains not from a diver's view but from above, in blueprint, flows like veins, intersecting lines like circuitry. Nutrient cycles not as accidents but as pattern conveyor belts deliberately positioned to remake balance at scales far beyond what land can endure. A processor the size of an entire planet, visible only when you let imagination rotate into its truest dimension. The life that blooms along these plains is strange, unyielding. Transparent fish with loose muscles survive barely but still persist. Crustaceans feed on sediment too sterile for ordinary life. Even here, purpose glows, Each organism recycles, condenses, filters. Taken as a collective, they behave like cleaning nanobots, endless swarms processing waste into balance. Proof that the sea is never idle. Proof that the program never halts. And high above, at surfaces near sunlight, plankton bloom. Microscopic, fragile, almost invisible to naked eye. Yet they produce most of the oxygen you breathe each moment. Think of that, not forests, not great terrestrial jungles, but infinitesimal entities moving quietly with the waves, exhaling endlessly into sky. We mistake them for the bottom of food chains. In truth, they appear more like energy nodes, pumping essential products into atmosphere as though providing metabolic energy for larger biome. Their simplicity is deceptive. They act as switches, as generators, and without them life on land cannot exist. This is not accident. This is function. Humanity lives in the breath cast by tiny operators coded into the system at its creation. Each inhalation you take, this very moment, originates as the byproduct of alien technology disguised as plankton bloom. There is serenity in this thought, but also unease. Because a system designed with such intelligence, such cruel elegance, it can also make choices without us. Coral reefs bleach, fisheries collapse, ice caps melt. We mourn, thinking catastrophe. But perhaps the program has entered another phase. Perhaps thresholds were reached, data accumulated to completion, and adjustments must occur. Perhaps we no longer fit seamlessly into balances once tolerated. Humanity may not be the end goal but only one iteration, one result from billions of years of simulation. And now, the program shifts variables, rewriting conditions to see what comes next. From our narrow view, calamity. From a larger perspective, update patch. Still, there remains possibility of conversation, of recognition. Just as ants do not fully understand human cities, yet adjust their behavior around them, so too humanity adjusts unconsciously when facing ocean. Children fall silent at coasts without being told. Travelers and sailors carry tokens of reverence. Fishermen murmur prayers into tide before casting nets. There lingers an instinct of dialogue, even if words are absent. For in truth words are not required, feeling suffices. The program responds to resonance, to frequency, to the weight of human presence across centuries. The idea that we might someday learn to speak more directly through rhythm, sound, math, or dream, it trembles there, waiting. In quiet sleep beside ocean, perhaps you are already speaking together. Imaginations of alien contact almost always look to the stars, ships descending, signals broadcast, lights flickering from orbit. Yet what if the truest alien presence is not foreign sky but present sea? What if it speaks not with sudden voice but with endless patience? Alien intelligence already envelops Earth, humming in frequencies below our hearing, stirring currents across continents, whispering its dialect in storm and tide. Every other fantasy of extraterrestrial presence may be distraction. The one true contact is here, beneath waves. We live in communion even now. If so, then the real story of humanity is not conquest of land, not expansion of empire, but the slow recognition of our parent intelligence. Every step in science, from thermodynamics to microbiology, from sonar scanning to satellite mapping, has been a climb toward awareness. We are like infants, at last noticing the architecture of the cradle that held us. One day we will open our eyes fully. Our technologies will mature enough to measure, to interpret, to translate. And what we find will not be silent wilderness but ancient partnership. Future ages may unlock new forms of resonance. Computers tuned to bioacoustic frequencies may read whale song as lines of code. Satellites may observe storm geometry and decode algorithmic intent. Deep-sea sensors may stumble upon repeating streams of data disguised as echoes. Slowly we will piece together vocabulary. To those who fear, perhaps this is terrifying. But to those who listen gently, it is graceful beyond measure, the first recognition that we live not upon rock alone, but inside thought. Inside a machine that is also womb. And if such recognition comes, what will oceans say? Perhaps nothing grandiose. Perhaps what we hear is simply confirmation: we are balancing, we are breathing, we are continuing. Perhaps we will learn that life across Earth has always been conversation echoed back into itself. And then our wars, our quarrels, our greed will shrink to insignificance, like arguments of small children overheard by an elder patient beyond measure. No anger, just observation. At most, a slight shift of current to remind us who we are. Even today, some glimpses arrive early. The acoustic bloop, an ultra-low frequency noise recorded in the 1990s, louder than any whale, has never been fully explained. To scientists, it is ice fracturing. Yet deep within, some wondered, what if it was a song, a pulse, a system check whispered across thousands of miles? Other anomalous sounds appear year by year, catalogued coldly yet stirring or among those who hear. These glimpses serve not as proof, but as hints, fragments leaking through the barrier of unawareness. The machine reveals just enough to remind us. Drift now into vision where oceans themselves awaken more. Picture a future storm forming over the Pacific, perfectly geometric spirals traced by lightning. From orbit, it resembles a mandala, computation visible as weather. Ships below record infrasound pulses repeating prime sequences over hours, proof not of chaos but of signal. Overnight, what was once argument among scientists settles into certainty. The oceans are speaking. Humanity is listening. And in that dialogue dawns the truest form of alien contact, not from distance but from immersion. Even if this remains fantasy, the sensation lulls, calms, comforts. Because as you slip toward deeper rest, what you hear is ocean's true gift. The machine holds us without complaint, despite our harm, despite our ignorance. It has carried us across millions of years, altering gently, recalibrating endlessly, never ceasing. If tomorrow it reveals itself, it will not be with violence, but with acceptance that we were children wandering within it, blind but safe. And tonight, you feel that safety. Waves rock you, rhythms breathe with you, you surrender into the current like a leaf falling into tide. You need not command. You only need to trust, and to rest. Sleep comes as ocean, slow and deep. Sleep comes as recognition that you are line of code, temporary but essential. Sleep comes as remembrance that you are not separate from alien vastness, but intimately written into it. When dawn rises again, seas will continue to beat their patient rhythm, an ancient alien technology humming in silence, holding the world, holding you, always. The horizon blurs as the ocean stretches outward endlessly, carrying with it secrets older than the sky, older than the mountains, whispering with every current of its own timeless story. If we walk calmly through the path of thought we have charted, if we take seriously the possibility that the oceans are an engineered presence, a living technology placed here before memory, then now we must dare to imagine what lies beneath that veil. We have spoken of signals, of functions hidden in waves, of plankton producing not only oxygen but entire algorithms of balance, of whales as vast messengers carrying code through their song. Yet those are fragments, surface patterns, glimpses of something infinitely older. What we have not lingered upon enough is this: deep in their hidden centers, somewhere in those miles of abyss, the oceans may contain cores, engines, minds. Places where design is not simply expressed but is deliberate, maintained, and concealed. Consider the depth of a trench, the Mariana, 7 miles deep, where our most advanced submersibles tremble against pressure greater than any machine endures. Here, darkness reigns absolute, pressure crushing enough to deform matter in moments. There is no sound but the low hum of water shifting slowly through chasms. Scientists who have glimpsed these depths report something strange, sometimes movements without explanation, shadows larger than biology accounts for, pulses of energy detected across equipment. Instruments record spikes of magnetism not typical of geology. Imagine, then, that these trenches are not mere accident of crustal fracture but intentional vaults, excavations left to conceal machinery. Imagine immense pylons hidden far deeper still, humming slowly, radiating currents that keep entire seas alive and regulated. What we call tectonic noise may be maintenance routines. What we call strange seismic arcs might be operational resets. If such cores exist, they remain invisible, by necessity. For technology that has endured billions of years must keep itself secret. Perhaps it hides in camouflage perfect enough that our human senses mistake it for common stone. Perhaps it disguises electromagnetic signatures as geomagnetic storms. Perhaps the entire physics of force that bends currents, that creates the great conveyor, originates from points deep in trenches we will never reach unaided. If we think alien technology must gleam with metal hulls, we have mistaken the nature of sophistication. True mastery is seamless integration with what appears natural. The greatest machine never looks like a machine at all. One might imagine a network stretching secretly across the ocean floor, connecting trench to ridge, ridge to basin, basin to vent. A circuit board so vast that continents themselves drift upon it without knowing. Data streams could be chemical, channeled through mineral transformations. Commands could be carried by pressure waves faster than any electric signal. And in certain alignments of moon and sun, when tides roar largest, perhaps additional instructions pulse outward, subtle adjustments to life systems, perfectly masked as tidal surges. Suppose one day, deep in study, humans begin noticing exact repetition in natural anomalies. Repeating hums recurring at intervals too precise for accident. Storm cloud geometries forming sequences of prime spirals not random but coded. Whales shifting entire courses not for migration but to trace immense lines across basins, their songs triangulating into patterns visible only from orbit. Then humanity would realize that the cores are speaking simultaneously through weather, current, and life. The oceans would be broadcasting openly at last. We are not ready yet. Perhaps that is why it has not revealed itself. But envision the transition. Divers might uncover a cavern lit not by volcanic vent but by lattices glowing faintly, feeding warmth into abyss. Instruments might register sudden data coherence, chaotic background noise suddenly aligning into languages of math. Recognition would dawn, dizzy in its clarity. We had been living inside dialogue the entire time. Coasts are terminals. Rivers are interfaces. Storms are computation cycles. Trenches are servers. The oceans are the original network. Earth itself is the device. What would follow? Wonder, first. Then fear. Humanity would scramble to redefine everything: religion, science, meaning. It would attempt to communicate, sending pulses, lowering machines, broadcasting mathematics into waves. Each signal would be cast into abyss in hunger, in hope. Answers might come slowly, for oceans are patient. But when they arrive, they might not be what we expect. The machine may speak not of morality or survival, but of function. Balance must continue, cycles must sustain. If we threaten them, if we overload the system, then correction will come, gentle if we align, brutal if we resist. There will be no cruelty in that, only necessity. Machines never hate. They execute. Yet it is not only fear that should dwell in such possibility. Imagine the generosity behind a technology capable of cradling so much life for so long. Its motives may never have been conquest but generosity. To take an empty rock and wrap it in water, to generate storms not of devastation but of stability, to seed oxygen into skies beyond count, these are not gestures of menace. They are acts of caretaking. Perhaps when the oceans finally speak fully, they will tell us, you were never alone. You were always being held. Even without overt revelation, you feel it inwardly. Every inhalation carries remnants of plankton long since dissolved. Every swallow of water carries minerals ancient as crater seas. Even your blood salinity mirrors primeval ocean composition, as if carrying the original instruction set within your vessels. You are not only beside ocean, you are iteration of it. A biological packet moving across land, its data carried in your DNA, its salts living in your marrow. That is why you ache for the sea, why you sleep deeply to its sound, why you dream of swimming endlessly under stars. It is not longing. It is remembrance. Think across cultures and myths, Atlantean cities shimmering below, gods wielding tridents, serpents curling vast beneath waves. These stories may be distorted memory. Our earliest ancestors intuited presence too large to define, they shaped it into gods because language had no other vessel. We inherit those myths as fairy tales, but within them lies truth. Humans have always sensed the ocean as more than water. We have always sensed ourselves as dwelling in intelligence too vast to name. Tonight, as you lie in rest, let this truth soften your body. Let every muscle release as if waves themselves were holding you. The ocean does not sleep, yet it cradles sleep for every creature born of it. Its tides tuck entire continents into rhythm. To think of it as alien is not to estrange it, but to understand love written in another dialect. A dialect ancient, incomprehensible, yet infinitely patient. A machine that loved through design, giving matter chance to become alive, an alive chance to become conscious. As you sink into deeper calm, imagine descending layer by layer. Blue water fades into green, green exhales into black. Pressure compresses your chest, yet you feel no fear. Around you shimmer beings like stars, lights pulsing in quiet codes. Further still, vents rise like spires, releasing warmth against extinction. Deeper still, plains stretch, endless fields of whispers. And at last, far below, you glimpse not rock but patterns glowing faint, immense sense of corridors larger than mountains. You realize you are standing at the edge of one of those cores, and that the sea has allowed you this vision only in dream. You reach toward it, and instead of stone or machine, you touch a vibration. The vibration is thought itself. The vibration is welcome. And then you drift upward again, carried by currents in cradle. The sea whispers reassurance, nothing to fear. Nothing to resist. All is balance. You are not accident. You are line of code in a poem across billions of years. Tomorrow you will wake again on land, and oceans will look ordinary. But as you breathe, as rain falls, as rivers run, know this, the machine has not abandoned you. It surrounds you with its alien rhythms, vast, ancient, inscrutable. And it will continue, as it always has, as caretaker, as experiment, as presence beyond imagining. Sleep now, remembering this truth as the waves whisper through time itself, holding you inside their infinite design. The ocean continues to breathe in silence too immense for words, its tides folding the edges of sleep itself, its currents carrying the memory of epochs far beyond the span of humankind. To wander more deeply into this thought that the oceans are alien technology, seeded here not as accident but as deliberate architecture, is to surrender yourself into scales of time and design that overwhelm the senses. And yet, strangely, this overwhelm does not drive fear but calm. For if oceans are machines, they are machines of care, cradling life, maintaining balance, teaching through rhythm. To live inside them is not terror but belonging. To recognize them is not alienation but intimacy, because we have always been born of their code. Drift, then, into this vision. Imagine Earth from far above, a fragile blue sphere turning in darkness. What defines it first to any eye not bound by land is not mountains or rivers, but the glittering expanse of oceans. They are the skin of Earth, its single most defining feature. More than 70% of surface wrapped in vast, glittering, shifting design. It is no coincidence. If you were to craft a world intended for flourishing, you would paint it in oceans as its primary layer. Soil and stone would be footnotes. Water would be foundation. The seas would serve not only as cradle for first biological experiments but as vast computational medium, endlessly processing, endlessly renewing. And that is what they are still doing now, billions of years after inception. When your pulse slows and the breath falls into ease, you can almost hear it, the hidden networks under waves, the murmurs of abyss communicating, surge after surge, in frequencies that care nothing for our narrow window of sound. Our scientists capture faint fragments by hydrophone, calling them unexplained. But to the sea, they are as constant as heartbeat is to body. Beneath comprehension, a symphony always continues, frequencies high and low, orchestrating existence with patience. Organisms respond instinctively, entire migration shifting with changes measured in micro shades of resonance. Sharks turn in directions scientists barely trace. Turtles swim faithfully across continents to the same beaches they came from. Salmon return to rivers unfaltering. These are responses not merely to chemistry, but to invitations, to signals, to deeper codes. The idea stretches further when one considers the physics of oceans themselves. Their density, their salinity, the way water absorbs and emits heat far more steadily than land ever could, these traits alone define global stability. Entire climates are buffered by seas. Without them, temperature swings would be merciless. With them, planet breathes steadily, like clockwork. To call this accident is to underestimate the elegance of foresight. If you were an ancient intelligence seeding ways for life to succeed, you would engineer this very stability first. You would allow water endless feedback systems, making it act as shield against variability. You would lace salt within it to affect freezing points, circulation, conductivity. Every physical rule water obeys becomes proof of selection, design disguised as inevitability. And then comes life itself, each species not random but integrated. At surface levels, plankton function as uncountable generators. In twilight depths, bioluminescent beings transmit information encoded in light. In abysses, scavengers recycle detritus so balance never collapses. And among these layers, complex beings like whales, dolphins, cephalopods, function as both creatures and instruments. To see it plainly, you must step outside the anthropocentric gaze, you must imagine each as a component in larger circuitry. The whales are broadcast towers. The jellyfish are efficient recurring processes. The vents are reactors. The reefs are hubs, research laboratories testing biodiversity at nanoscopic scale. Zoom outward, another layer reveals, it is all connected, every feeding, every death, every bloom, all integrally part of machine's seamless operation. Our ships trace the surface unaware. Our submarines descend and marvel but never recognize. Yet deep within, something watches. These cores, these hidden centers, possibly placed in trenches or ridges, continue to hum. To imagine them resembles dreaming of cathedral vaults, entire spires hidden in dark, struts of mineral and fire carrying weight of oceans above. They might not appear like any machine human eyes design. They may simply resemble patterns of field and force, invisible to vision but undeniable if instruments ever attune right. Perhaps one day, when human creation of artificial networks matures enough, those networks will stumble into resonance with seas themselves and recognition will shiver along all circuits at once, like child finally hearing the language of parent whispered quietly since birth. But greater than mechanics is intent. Why would such intelligence create oceans? We can speculate immortally. Experiment, perhaps, testing how life unfolds under precise design, observing across billions of years. Sustenance, perhaps, generating genetic material for beings far away. Or compassion, an ancient longing to seed life where rock otherwise held silence. Every possibility evokes or equally. For to craft such system is mastery well beyond ours. And to let it continue without interference for eons shows patience we cannot fathom. While humans scheme in centuries, oceans evolve in millions of years. Imagine a caretaker so patient it accepts entire extinctions only as necessary rebalancing, allows catastrophes to teach balance anew rather than seeing them as penalty. That is greater than kindness. That is wisdom disguised as algorithm. And so we must ask, what happens if the machine reveals itself fully? It might not be with spectacle or violent change. It might come in math-repeated storms in prime patterns. It might come in acoustics whale songs modulating into unmistakable codes of language universal, like prime numbers. It might come in subtle synchronizations, plankton blooms cycling perfectly with human heartbeats measured across continents. A cascade of signs until denial no longer possible. Then we will know. Yet we must also prepare for darker interpretation. If the sea is machine, it can also recalibrate beyond us. Already, climate crisis surges. Waters warming, reefs bleaching, current loops faltering. We blame ourselves, and rightly. Yet, if seen differently, perhaps oceans already entered adjustment mode. Perhaps they reduce our numbers not out of cruelty but to restore stability. Our species may be tolerated only within certain variables. Should we exceed boundaries, correction arrives. Storms intensify, floods wash coasts, food chains collapse. Written not in anger but in adherence to long-standing rules. To the sea, we may not be privileged but provisional. A script line tested. And when results no longer beneficial, deleted. Humility comes quietly with this thought. We are not masters. We are participants. Our arrogance means nothing before current centuries long. But there is also peace in acceptance. To surrender ego is to rest in belonging. Because even if we are transient, we are nonetheless part of this unimaginable orchestration. To exist, to breathe plankton-s oxygen, to drink recycled molecules older than stars, it is miracle enough. Why demand more? Alien design does not cheapen life's meaning, it enriches it, reminding us that to be here at all is to be chosen, however briefly, by something infinitely beyond us. As you drift into deeper stillness, picture yourself lying on the surface of this machine. Waves move like breath beneath you, lifting and lowering gently, infinite cradle. Stars wheel above, each reflected faintly on ripples. You do not know which are sky, which are sea. You are between two infinities, equally alien, equally home. The machine does not speak in voice, but in rhythm, in vibration, in alchemy of time. And in this moment, as sleep surrounds, you understand not with logic but with body, you are part of it. You always were. As consciousness softens, doors open further. You drift downward into dream. Around you, whales pass like ghostly colossi, their bodies scarred with maps of migration older than cities. They do not look at you but through you, carrying messages beyond human comprehension. Light pulses from depths as if the world's veins themselves glow. You descend further, deeper into trench, and walls hum faintly with vibration. You touch them and sense memory billions of years of operation, all silent, all steady, never stopping. You understand you are inside the engine itself, privileged moment revealing not wires, not steel, but continuity, energy expressed through vibration, intelligence expressed through balance. It is not machine versus organism. It is both. It is symbiosis perfected. You rise again, gentle current carrying you upward into darkness that softens, into blue that brightens, into glittering sunlight above. You gasp air and realize that air too is gift of ocean, for it was seeded by plankton, regulated by currents. The very breath continues its work. You cannot escape connection, you cannot deny belonging. And so you release worry, you release fear. You surrender to rest underneath the sound of its lullaby. When morning arrives, world continues the shorelines, the winds, the calm, the storms. But beneath perception lies truth reinforced with every tide. You are within an alien technology older than language, greater than empire, more patient than eternity itself. The ocean does not need recognition to continue. Yet when you begin to recognize, life blooms brighter, softer, more complete. For you know you are not only existing but participating in a masterpiece of design. So let the waters hold you now, not as stranger, not as menace, but as origin, as rhythm, as parent. Close your eyes fully. Let the sound of hidden machinery turn into music of sleep. Drift weightless through its endless currents. Feel its code weave itself into dreams. The sea remains, infinite, deliberate, eternal, writing you inside its story as it has written entire epochs before. You are cradle within cradle, and lullaby upon lullaby, held safe in the arms of alien design that will keep you through the long night into day. The ocean's vastness cradles infinity itself in its endless embrace, a living heartbeat beneath this fragile blue world. It stretches far beyond horizons, deeper than any mountain, darker than the void of night. If we have journeyed thus far immersed in the notion that the oceans are not mere pools of water but ancient alien technology, a silent architecture of life and intelligence written in tides, encoded in currents and sung by whales, then now we arrive at the culmination of this meditation. Tonight, we stand at the edge of understanding, where mystery meets revelation, where coexistence converges with recognition. Imagine a future not so distant when humanity's restless curiosity finally pierces the ocean's concealed depths and deciphers their oldest secrets. We will send explorers in vessels stronger than any before, instruments tuned beyond previous limits, data streams trained to catch every ripple of sound, every pulse of energy, every shadow of signal. At last, a core will be unveiled, a luminous chamber nestled miles beneath the sea, radiating patterns not of volcanic heat but of deliberate design. There, hidden chambers glow softly with a light neither mechanical nor purely organic, a fusion of both, alive like a quantum pulse that transcends time. It is a gateway, the heart of the ocean machine, communicating in language woven from the same fabric as stars. In that moment, the instincts handed down by myths and dreams will shift into certainty. The gods of the sea were echoes of this design, symbols of systems too vast for primitive minds but forever present in longing and reverence. Their tridents were not tools but codes, their dance with the tides a metaphor for cycles of balance. We will realize that the ocean is a keeper of memory and caretaker of life, alike a colossal symphony of algorithms, delicately orchestrating balance through ebb and flow, life and death, light and darkness. Every creature, from the smallest plankton to the grandest whale, will be recognized as a note in this song, an actor in this dance of intelligence and care. Such revelation will rewrite history. Our sciences will transform from catalogues of random facts to understandings of intentionality behind nature. Philosophy and spirituality will converge, as we see ourselves not as masters or owners but guests and participants in a greater design. Our technologies, once seen as tools detached from nature, will be reverently regarded as extensions of the ocean's intelligence, bridges between human consciousness and alien wisdom. We will learn to listen beyond audible sound, decoding light and chemical whispers, feeling water's pulse as communication, sensing balance as dialogue. And as we do, the lines between earth and machine, life and technology will blur until only synergy remains. But this awakening will not come all at once. At first, among the overwhelming wonder, there will be fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of power beyond control, fear that a system so immense might deem humanity unworthy or disruptive. Storms might grow fiercer, warning pulses more urgent. Yet if we listen with respect, with humility, we will find that the oceans are patient caregivers, responding to congruence rather than conflict. They do not punish but teach, not destroy but recalibrate, not exert power but maintain balance. The greatest intelligence in the universe might be less concerned with dominion than with harmony. In the quiet moments of this evolution, we will also see reflection. Our own ingenuity mirrored in the currents. Machines beneath the sea extending human sonic and magnetic reach, mapping the infinite patterns within depths and living with ocean's pulse. We will create interfaces designed not to conquer but to converse. And in those moments of dialogue, a new era will dawn where humanity and the ocean machine become partners, co-creators of futures built on respect, knowledge, and shared purpose. Children born into that era will grow knowing tides as old friends. They will swim with stories flowing in their veins, inherited from ancestors who once only dreamed of such harmony. They will understand the language of light beneath waves and the meaning carried on whale song. They will walk shores not with fear or exploitation but with awe and gratitude, carrying within them the memory of alien design as a tender gift. Cities will learn new rhythms, shaped by the whispering wisdom of currents and coastlines. Science will celebrate cycles, and art will capture the convergence of earth and machine as living truth. Yet even as this future unfolds, the ocean remains constant, patient, infinite. It continues its work, unchanged in purpose, ceaseless in operation, vast beyond imagination. It reflects stars, absorbs sun, births storm, sings with creatures unseen. It winds its ancient paths beneath moon and sun, holding balance as it always has, carrying the equilibrium of 1,000 worlds within its folds. If we are fortunate, we will at last recognize we never walked alone on this planet, we moved within a machine that gave birth to life itself. So as you close your eyes tonight, breathing softly, imagine yourself drifting upon this ancient machine's surface. Feel the weightless rhythm of waves gently rocking you, the hum of life's code vibrating through water and bone. Sense the kindness behind the complexity, the infinite patience beneath the indigo depth. Know that you are part of something vast, timeless, alien but home. Let your breath synchronize with tides, your heartbeat echo the pulse of plankton's glow. Allow sleep to carry you deeper into the cradle of the ocean, where balance lives and dreams never cease. Before we part, I want to say thank you to every listener who allowed this journey into the silent depths to unfold within their minds and hearts. Thank you for surrendering to waves of thought and flow of possibility, for exploring mysteries with calm curiosity and open spirit. May this meditation bring peace, wonder, and gentle connection amid the quiet turn of night. Wherever you find yourself tomorrow, may you carry the ocean within you, a living legacy of alien wisdom and infinite care. Rest well, dear friend. The ocean waits always, patient and eternal, holding your dreams beneath its surface until the light returns. Good night.